Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Drew Schnurr, Assistant Professor of Composition and Media at the University of North Texas. And we would like to welcome you to our latest episode of Music Motion. And I'd just like to get right into it and say hello to my friend, Olly Blackburn. Olly, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Drew. I'm back in London,
Excellent,
and
excellent.
it's hot here. Not as hot as it is with you, but it's pretty for London. It's hot.
Yeah, I bet it is. It's hot everywhere right now, I guess nowadays. Yeah, it's been pretty sweltering here. But all of that aside, we've got just a great episode planned here today with Zeltia Montes. And would you kick it off here?
I'd love to. I am so excited about today's episode because we're going to not just speak to a phenomenal composer, but also get a window into another industry, into the Spanish industry. And I'm all for discovering how things work in other places. So talking about Zeltia led me to ponder that sometimes I regard a film kind of like a human body that's been carefully constructed. The script, the performances, the shooting are all holistic elements, each one that goes to create another layer of the whole, a skeleton, a brain, functioning organs. Uh, I kind of almost regard, that's what the script and the photography and the working with actors are like. But the final stage where you have a creative process that affects the entire organism is, of course, music. And for me, music is like adding muscle tissue, flesh, and skin to an existing form. The form is already discernible, but without music, without this element, it's still unrecognizable as an actual body until that final layer is applied. Now, that isn't to say that music is an afterthought. Quite the opposite. There's directors like Sergio Leone, who we're going to be discussing today, who actually could not start shooting a film until or unless the music was already composed. Music is simply the final layer in an architectural process that is predicated on adding layer upon layer upon layer. So I'm thinking about film as an organism or as architecture because of the work of the person we're going to talk to today, today's artist. Her scores have an architectural scale and vision to them. And in her scores, each cue feels like it's part of a fully designed structure that's focused on the drama, the characters, the themes, just as importantly, their undercurrents. She's a very subtle composer, and the story too. Our composer today is capable of being classical, avant-garde, and deeply emotional at the same time. And she's produced individual pieces of immense power, like the song Muerte, for which she was nominated for a Goya Award in 2017, and also complete scores of such depth and complexity that they could be played as full concert performances. So, without more ado, it is my great pleasure to introduce the Goya Award winner of 2022 for El Buen Patron, Spanish composer Zeltia Montes.
Wow, thank you so much, Ollie. It's a privilege to be here talking with you.
Greetings, Zeltia, and I believe you're in Madrid today, is that right?
Yes, I am. And it's hot too, but it's nice.
And I believe that you are working on two projects right now, so we have to thank you for taking time out of the studio to do this with us.
Yeah, I'm working a lot, but it's good to take some time off.
So look, we like to kick off these episodes with two questions from one music film lover to another music film lover and practitioner. And the questions are, why do you think that film music is so powerful, that specific thing? And why do you think music and moving images work in this way?
It's such a complicated question. because I think the answer is probably not verbal. It's something you just feel. Yeah, when you go to a movie and you feel something so powerful and you don't know why, but it's because of that combination between images and music. That's when you understand it. So I think the answer is there. If you've ever watched a film that has made you feel something incredible, and it has been because of that combination, then you'll probably understand.
Do you remember that first time you had that feeling yourself?
I mean, I don't know, maybe, but I was very little. Maybe the first time was E.T., which is a very typical one, but it was, yeah, one of the first times I think I did think about the music, like, wow.
Now, you have been engaged in music since you were 4 years old, is that right?
Yes, because my dad, well, he loves to play and sing. He has composed songs and he adapts songs too, and we used to sing together when I was a baby almost. So my sister, who's 4 years older, was going to the conservatory, so they thought, well, I mean, it's easier for us to leave both of them there. So I was too young to be there. So I didn't understand anything when I was 4, but I remember just being there in the class and thinking it was fun.
And you were in the conservatory until you were 18, is that, did I get that right?
No, till I was 22. It's worse.
It sounds almost Harry Potter-like, that you were left in a music conservatory for your entire early life.
And maybe incredible or not so incredible part is that I was not very good at music, and I actually failed every single piano course. There were 8, so it took me 16 years to do the piano courses. So yeah, it was not easy.
So I love the fact that you failed the piano courses, and that brings us perfectly, I think, to you are the Goya Award winner of 2022. So from those piano courses,
all those teachers that also, told me it was really bad.
And by the way, a pretty piano at school. So I want to dive straight in with this, and also the first, I think the third Spanish woman to win the Best Composition Award, the first solo Spanish woman to win the Composition Award and the Goya Awards. Also, The Good Boss was the most nominated Spanish film in the history of the Goya. So a really incredible film, breaking a lot of boundaries. And I want to dive straight in and play a piece of your music from the film and then talk about it, because it is a very special film and there's a lot to discuss.
Okay.
So let's play the cue.
...60, 150, 300, hasta 3.000 kilos.
Como si no estuviese aquí. Buenas tardes.
Cargan cajas, paquetes, palets. Casi todos los modelos incorporan rampa para subir carros. Esas de ahí son para ganado, resistentes a golpes, ácidos, detergentes. Están hechas de láminas de acero y llevan un tratamiento especial anticorrosión. Y tienen 4 células de carga.
Pero no os hace falta una de estas en el baño, porque sois flacas.
Y vosotras os preguntaréis para qué necesitamos saber todo esto.
Yo también me lo pregunto.
Para poder vender el producto tenemos que conocerlo antes.
Eso.
Exacto. ¿Cuánto pesas tú?
57.
Vale. A ver, sube. Os voy a enseñar una cosa.
Yo no sé cómo me tomaría eso de que me subieran a una báscula para ganado. No lo sé.
¿Cuánto ofrecéis por mí?
Nada. Trabajas para mí, ya eres de mi propiedad.
56,800. Vale, no te bajes. Puedes subir tú, Ángela, y tú también, por favor. Tiene una función de acumulación de pesadas. ¿Cómo funciona?
Dale al botón. El rojo.
So my apologies. I should have, for people who haven't seen The Good Bus, I should have set this up. That this is a film, as you can have seen from this clip, where Javier Bardem plays a factory owner who's going through a midlife crisis, and he falls for a younger woman at the same time as his factory is due to hopefully win a major award from the Spanish government. And it's all about how his life spirals out of control. Zeltia, could you just talk us through, this is the first moment we see him really flirting. Just talk us through your instincts on this.
Yes, I just wanted to say one thing. We don't know if it's a midlife crisis. Maybe this person has been like that all his life. So we'll see. There are some, I don't know, some things make me think that maybe he was like this maybe 20 years ago. So, yeah. But, I mean, as we can see in the clip, there is a lot of humor in the music. The music, in part, is the way he views the little things he does that are maybe slightly off, that he shouldn't do, but I mean they're okay. He doesn't really think they're any offensive or there's anything wrong with that. So the music is going like, okay, it's a great day, it's a wonderful morning, there's this new girl that's come to work, let's see how she looks, oh, I think I like her, let's go behind her. He pretends he's not there, the music is pretending to, so the music is really accompanying the scene in a way maybe very similar to how you would do an animation clip. It's very Mickey Moused. Everything is very measured. The thing which is a bit different maybe with animation, in animation you kind of can see how it's structured here. It's a bit more subtle, but it's really structured too. I know exactly where I want to hit, I know exactly where I want to pick up. So it's just done in a more subtle way than you would do it in animation, because there you can be a little bit more obvious. So here the humor is achieved because of that very tight tailoring with what's happening in the scene. Also with the music, I'm saying what kind of person this is, where he comes from, if he's more conservative, if he's more high class. Well, we're already seeing that he's the boss and he makes jokes like, well, whoever works with me is under my property. So yeah, I think all of that I tried to weave in a way into the music.
Now, something I noticed about the film is that your score is very controlled, and it appears only to accompany the scenes with Javier Bardem.
Yes, we made a conscious decision, both Fernando and I, the director, because really also, I mean, as we the film lovers know, it's as important where you put the music and where there is no music. So the fact that we were only accompanying him made it also, we were making a statement that really, it's so narcissistic. He's such a narcissistic character, he doesn't even know. So we're kind of saying that with the music, because we're using it only for him and for the things he does.
Right. And I got that sense with the scene we just saw, that the sort of jauntiness of the music and the way you describe it, it's not cool what he's doing. He's targeting a younger woman, he's putting her on a scales and joking about her being his property. And the counterpoint of the jauntiness of the music really seems to underscore that narcissism. I couldn't think of a cue that speaks narcissism more clearly.
Yes, it was hard to find, but I think like with the good things in life, once you find it, you know you found it. So for me, it was very hard, but there was a point that both Fernando and I knew that we had it, that it was that. So once there, it's much easier, but until you arrive to that point, it's very hard. The process is difficult because you don't know if you're going to find what you're searching for.
How many tries did it take? Can you give a ballpark?
It wasn't that many. No, maybe 2 or 3. It wasn't that many, but it did take me some time. I had to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
It was more thinking
and
than
how
doing.
much? Right. So is that important to you, to find time to just sort of separate and disengage and just think about things?
Yes, because too many times, because of the time pressure, you just have to jump in and compose directly. And I've had to do that many times. And of course, I mean, it works because you just have to. But I do feel there is something to earn when you do have the luxury of thinking before composing. And it's thinking about many things, like why do you want to put music, why, where, and why there, and what is the score going to say to this film. And I try to start from there instead of starting from the music.
I would have thought with this film in particular, where you have one of the world's greatest actors, Javier Bardem, giving, and this is not said lightly, one of his greatest performances.
I think so too.
And someone with such a specific voice style and movement. We had in a previous episode, Daniel Pemberton was talking about Being the Ricardos and how he shaped his score around Javier's voice. Did that also help guide the solutions you came up with on this?
Yes, definitely. I didn't know that Daniel had done it that way too, but here it was very important for me. Many of the poses the music does have to do with the poses he does when talking. It has to do also with the way he doesn't go straight to what he wants. He kind of goes around it and then gets to where he wants. And also the way he walks. The way he walks was very important for me in figuring out the pace. Is it a light pace? Does he walk strongly? How does that feel? And it was very important. Both the way he talks, the way he moves, the way he, I don't know, I was trying to figure out how would he sound.
Yeah. Well, again, I'll just say this as a fan. I think you did a monstrously good job of this, and clearly the Spanish audience and Academy agree with that. Let's play the next clip. This is later on in Javier's journey in this film as things get on top of him and he starts to lose control of everything he's built up.
Okay.
Allá enfrente manda usted. Aquí no. No me muevo. 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 Aquí estamos. Nosotros no pactamos. Aquí estamos. Nosotros no pactamos. Aquí estamos. Nosotros no pactamos. Blanco, vete a la mierda. ¡Hijo de puta!
Loco de mierda.
¡Mira, Blanco!
Loco de mierda.
¡Escucha! ¡Mi culo también lucha! ¡Mira!
Loco de mierda.
Está loco, no razona.
Vamos a ver.
¡El pueblo unido jamás será vencido! ¡El pueblo unido jamás será vencido! ¡El pueblo unido jamás será vencido! ¡El pueblo unido jamás
¿Se le habían arreglado?
¡El pueblo unido jamás será vencido! ¡El pueblo unido jamás será vencido! ¡El pueblo unido jamás será vencido! ¡El pueblo! ¡Vete a la mierda! ¡Vete a la mierda!
Cago en la puta madre. Hijo de la gran.
¡El pueblo también gana! ¡Blanco!
So good.
I really
So
like
good.
that scene.
How did you get into the scene? Did you have to think about it, or did it come instinctively?
That was the one try, and Fernanda was really happy, and it came out pretty easy in a way. But I think because I had like been building towards it, I composed it towards the end of the score, so I really understood by then what the film was about, which is something that happens a lot. Like you understand the score when you're finishing it, which is a pity. I wish I knew everything at the beginning, but yeah.
Same as
So, I
life.
mean, yeah, of course, yeah. Well, I wanted it to sound metallics because of the scales that are metal. I wanted to include that sound, and I wanted to be harsh and have edges, and it's really the deconstruction of his personality for the first time. Maybe he's being a little bit himself, and himself is what we see, like somebody that can't allow things to go beyond his control. So he just wants this award, and there are things that are stopping him from getting this award. So for a narcissistic person, that's something very hard to accept. And it's like the theme is being deconstructed, and a lot of elements that make it chaotic are added. Also, I mean, I remember when we recorded the last part in the bathroom is extremely difficult for a cello player, and I had really I chose a cello player that's been a solo for my scores many times, and even him, he was like telling me this is not playable, and I had to convince him that it was playable. So it's yeah, it's a lot, dealing with a lot of things, but in the end I got what I wanted, and I think it works very well. I'm very proud of that scene.
It's so interesting to hear you talk about the cello player, because it does feel fractured and frustrated, like it's and again, what you were saying earlier about the way that your score is tracking Javier's performance, it just feels a complete organism, including the frustration and the rage.
Yeah, and also that's why it was hard to play, because I'm making it feel out, like he's departing from his center, so it has to sound chaotic and complicated and I don't know, and like fast, and it had to have part of what we see he's feeling inside.
Great. Look, what I'd like to do now is move straight on to another film that you did very close to The Good Boss, which is called Adios. Completely different type of film, completely different type of score. We're going to play a sequence. It's a long sequence, but it's a fantastic sequence. So everyone out there, buckle up and enjoy this. It's really good.
¿Dónde está la maravilla?
¿No la has visto?
¿La has visto?
Va. ¡Dentro!
Tú saco mierda. ¿Has visto la maravilla?
¿Y yo qué coño sé, Cargo?
A ver si todavía te me mete un guantazo. Me diga dónde está la maravilla, me voy a cagar tú. ¡Y la mierda ya, cabrón!
¿Y yo qué hace?
Que solo queremos saber dónde está la maravilla.
Que no sabemos nada, aquí no está.
¡Aquí no se ha perdido nada! ¡Hijo de puta! ¿Quién iba en el coche? ¿Iba el Kempe? ¿Quién eran los otros dos? Dime.
Yo no vi nada.
Habla. Habla de cabrón, tu puta madre. Habla. ¡Hostia!
That's really impressive. Would you like to tell us a little bit about that sequence, what it means in the film, and how you got into it?
Yeah, I mean, probably you would need to understand part of the plot, but it's this couple that have lost their child in an accident that was not so much an accident. They're trying to find out. They're gypsies and they're young and they're poor, and they have the police trying to find out who did it, but they're not very clear on if they're really on their side or what they want or who really did this. So this is the one that's running the most at the end that we just saw is the father of this little girl that died, and he's trying to find who did this. So I mean, what I really like about the scene, and I like about of Paco Cabeza's filmmaking is how he builds the scenes. They're very well constructed and they're very well shot, and it's in a way it's a typical action clip, but it also has many moments where you're seeing details of things and then you go back into the action, so you have to decide many times where the music is and what the music is doing. It's also in this case particular. It's very measured. It's very tailored. It's very well constructed to each change in scene, each change in action, each change in tempo. I'm trying to really build the emotion and that we feel that we really want a solution, what's going to happen, and yeah, it's also choosing what kinds of sounds I want, what I want them to do. It's a lot of playing with sound design.
Yeah, we've discussed this in other shows about the intersection of sound design and music. I'd like to invite you to talk more about it. The thing that strikes me as an outsider on the scene is that it starts off with this very funereal, measured pace that you wouldn't normally expect for an action scene like this. Underneath it, there's a more kind of, Hollywood drum beat, Hollywood for want of a better word, which then evolves out of the scene in a very subtle but very controlled way. So I'd love to hear more about those different sounds that you found and how you found them.
Yes. Also, I'm making very subtle references to flamenco music in a way, and to some of the music they sing in sad moments. So this is because of that. That's because why I'm choosing that pace, and also even there is an earlier part in the raid that I'm using as percussion. The heels of the flamenco the flamenco dancers. I sampled the heels, and I used that I multiplied it by 20 or 40 tracks, and I made different rhythms, and that I used as percussion. So at first it sounds very wooden, and then it sounds more metallic. And in the metallic parts, I sampled different metallic things. So when I talk about the interaction of sound designs, that many times either I try to imitate sounds I think would be somewhere in the scene that I could imagine that there could elements that would give me that kind of sound, or I take them directly from the direct recorded recordings made live when they were shooting the scene, or sometimes even from the sound designer. So any of those three places, I try to choose sounds that I think could work as instruments, and I sample them, and I use them in higher pitch, lower pitch, slower, faster, and I mix with other real instruments. So I really like, I think it works very well to confuse the listener. You don't really know if you're listening to a true instrument or to something that seems that it's coming out from the scene, and this also helps create this confusion, and for these kind of things it works very well.
That's extraordinary. So are you in touch with the sound recorders during production, or is that after production that you get access to those tapes?
Usually after, but sometimes before. It depends on when I'm starting to compose and the necessity of the film. But I recently just did a musical, so you can imagine there were people dancing and singing, so that I needed to really talk with the sound recording person a year before. I mean, a very long time before, and we just finished. So yeah, but for this one, I did. I got the sound when they were editing, and also then I also imagined what sounds could come out from those places, and there were metallic tins, and there were like you can see different things that I'm trying to replicate in the score.
Well, it just sucks you in. I had no clue those types of sounds you're talking about, but the overall effect, hearing it for the audience, is you've created a world there that sucks us in.
I think that's what's really important, because the thing that I don't want it to be noticed, I just want it to be felt. And that's exactly what you said. You didn't know that was there, so but it works. So, and that's why I think you can do it in a way that it's not like in your face. You're not hearing a metal can. You don't really know what you're hearing, but it feels that it really comes out from the film. And that's what I aspire to. I aspire to do music that was already in the film, and I just have to dig for it and find it.
That's beautiful. We're going to use that quote. That's a fantastic quote. It feels like you should do a sci-fi film, Zeltia. Have you ever done sci-fi?
I would love that. No, I haven't done sci-fi. I would love that.
I would love to hear what you do for sci-fi. I think it would be pretty amazing and different. But let's move on to a genre you have done. Let's go to straight thriller, sort of Hitchcockian thriller. And we're going to play a clip from a film called The Silence of the Marsh now, which is available for everyone to watch on Netflix.
Valencia no es una ciudad marítima. Nunca lo ha sido. Es una urbe fluvial construida sobre un descomunal pantano, drenado durante siglos para que la famosa huerta valenciana proliferase e hiciera posible la riqueza de la ciudad. Una riqueza de la que siempre disfrutaron los mismos. La ciudad empezó el siglo XXI enamorada de sí misma. La Fórmula 1, la Copa América de Vela, la ciudad de las artes y las ciencias. Ejercicios de unanismo de los que ahora nadie se hace responsable. Hoy, el pantano no se ve por ninguna parte, pero eso no significa que no exista. Sigue ahí, solo que un poco más abajo, como un cadáver mal enterrado, repleto de anguilas y de cañas. Unas y otras empezaron a llenar el palacio de la Generalitat. Primero llegaron las anguilas, bichos repugnantes, híbridos de pez y de serpiente que viven en el fango y se alimentan de la inmundicia. Los conoce bien, porque no hace mucho fue uno de ellos. Observaba cómo se daban la mano y se fundían en abrazos tan falsos como sus sonrisas. Escritores arribistas, ególatras autores de blogs, promotores culturales y editores. Todos estaban allí esperando a que aparecieran los verdaderos dueños del pantano. La única especie que no necesita abono, ni labranza, ni riego para su crecimiento. Las cañas, altas y duras, pero vacías por dentro. Ellas son las verdaderas señoras de la marisma, de la ciudad. Las cañas están en la política, en la patronal, en los sindicatos, en las universidades, en los deportes, en todas partes. Durante un tiempo él también quiso alzarse dorado, orgulloso. Pero no tardó en darse cuenta de que no era una anguila, ni tampoco era una caña. Era otro tipo de criatura. Una mucho más peligrosa.
I'm going to say this a lot, but that's so good.
Wow.
And it's purity of it. It's just another great actor, Pedro Alonso, familiar to people maybe from Money Heist. Just his voice, some beautiful camera work, and your music.
Yeah, actually, the camera work gave me a lot of ideas. It's circular at some point, so I thought it should be something danceable, and so also something danceable is easier to give us this. We're getting dizzy, so this feeling of dizziness. I was trying to achieve that, and there's many things that actually when I saw it right now I'd forgotten, but. It's very long, and it's also required a lot of construction because it goes through many phases, and sometimes to know what you want, you need to know where you're heading to. So Also, I'm saying many things too with the music of who this character is, where we're at. It's a very political thriller too. It does talk a lot about how high society politics works in a certain part of Spain at that point. And so all this has to do with the kind of music I'm choosing. It's also close to zarzuela, which is a Spanish type of opera that's, well, it's been very popular in Spain, mostly for the first half of the 20th century. And it's mostly related with conservatives and high class. And well, I was using elements of that, but I'm also using, we can see like the piano and some of the elements are more sophisticated. It's not very popular music. And also this, the main character, Pedro Alonso, is very sophisticated. He's also a big narcissist. It seems that might be my theme. Yeah. So, and there's also a lot of sound design also mixed, and it's harder when it's very melodical, because you have to hide it more and you have to make it work with the instruments, and this is very orchestral. So yes, there is a lot of construction in that scene. I think it worked very well, but it did take, I mean, some time, yeah.
Without wanting to give too much away, you know, this is a film where Pedro is an unreliable narrator, and this theme, which is the theme of the film, really captures that unsettling unease of his character. It's beautiful, it's lush, it's charming like him, but you just don't. You're not steady on your feet with it either, which goes to what you were saying about the circularity.
Yeah, and I was very lucky to be working with a director that loves big themes and loves melodies. I was so amazed when he told me, "No, I want a melody that I can remember," and that's like the last thing most people want nowadays. So that was very rewarding in that way. And he loved Bernard Herrmann's scores, and he loved that kind of scoring. So for me, it was like a gift to be able to do that.
Fantastic. Now we're going to, as with all great composers, we're now going to move to a completely different genre and style. And we're going to play a clip from a TV series you did called Atlanticas.
Yeah, very different.
And we're going to play this. And I'm going to leave it to you to explain this to everyone. Okay, let's play the clip.
Okay.
Si supiera cruzar el fuego, podría estar en la tierra y en el mar al mismo tiempo.
Okay, Zeltia, over to you.
So, well, this is a documentary miniseries that has 3 episodes, and it's called Atlantic as Atlantic Women, and it's like 3 actresses that go to different parts of the Atlantic Ocean. And the 3rd episode is about Namibia. So this actress goes to Namibia, and mostly it's like conversations with the people she meets and how this changes the way she travels and how she feels about the world through traveling to this country. And I don't know why this is something. Sorry. And when she's there, she meets this tribe. They do these rituals where, I mean, they're trying to make them feel free or whatever. And in a way, we're trying to symbolize how it would be that at that point she achieved some kind of nirvana and was like completely in another state. And the images are so beautiful, and it's so poetic the way it's shot, that it was very evocative for me. And I also there is some, for example, the clapping that we see, they just clap a little bit at the beginning, and I sample the clapping and I play with the clapping to make some kind of rhythm. And then I started introducing all these guitar distortions, and that is all like sampled things, very weird stuff that I did with distorted guitars and effects. And I play a lot with the cut, what we're seeing, how it's edited. The editing is giving me the idea of what to do with the music. So it's kind of a video clip, this scene. So I could really like do it in a different way. I could just play it as it's really here. The music and the image are totally one thing. I don't think you can separate them.
I'd agree with that. It feels experimental, very experimental, and you have a background in experimental music, is that right? In experimental live performances.
I think I'm just experimental. I love to experiment with whatever. I don't know if I have a background, but I have a tendency. It's just something I love, yeah.
Well, this brings us to the world of documentary. Well, it touches on TV, but I wouldn't say this is a regular TV show. And I think right now you're just starting in your journey in sort of episodic serial TV. So we'll have to reconnect with you after you've done that, and we can talk about the schedules and
yes, it's another world
and all that fun stuff. But you are very, very seasoned in documentaries, and we now want to show a clip from a documentary that you did called Sad Hill Unearthed, which is about the excavation of the famous cemetery from the Sergio Leone film, The Good, the Bad and the Ugly. But it's beyond that. It's also sort of a meditation about art and the religious importance of art in people's lives. And in terms of a young composer, it's also a direct dialogue with Ennio Morricone, who is, without exaggeration, probably the most important figure in film composing today. It's like an artist being asked to paint a picture about Michelangelo. How did you feel about that when you were presented with this project?
I was terrified. I didn't want to do it. I told the director, I don't think this is for me. And he was also very patient, and he convinced me slowly, and he said, no, we're not going to ask you to do anything that has to do with Morricone. You can do whatever you want. If you wanted to have something, and I don't know, like I said, well, I can give it a try, and if I find my own way and my own music, and he did love what I did. Mostly, I think it was like the second try. So and I felt I was being honest with myself with the story that we were telling, which is not the story of Morricone or The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. It's the story about these guys that are so passionate, and they decided to unearth this cemetery from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. But it's more about their passion and what moved them to do this, and what's moved so many people around the world to go visit this cemetery that is in the north of Spain, in Burgos. So I wanted to tell their story, but I also knew that, of course, Morricone's music was there. And also the image that came to me is like, if I went to this cemetery, it's like even 50 years after, that music that Morricone wrote is floating somewhere. So what if I pick up that perfume and from there start to construct something for this documentary, which is a different story? So that was the way I started.
And on that note, we're going to play Unearthed, which is rich with the perfume that you talk about.
Yes.
Que se pudieron traer 7, 8, 10 remolques de piedra.
Supuso viajes de media hora, un tractor, de ida y otra media hora de vuelta.
Se van llevando, nos las deja allí, pero una vez dejadas allí, pues hay que cogerlas, hay que intentar sacar un círculo más o menos perfecto, que no siempre queda del todo perfecto.
Es que hay piedras que no hay manera de casarlas.
Es una satisfacción cómo ha quedado y cómo va a quedar cuando pongamos todas las cruces.
Il cimitero, chiamiamolo così, cimitero di Sergio Leone che ha costruito, per me è un onore che a questi bisogna dire grazie, a tutti questi che fanno 50 km 100 e vanno lì, è un onore proprio.
This a magic piece of film history is then preserved, and it's probably started a bit late, but it wasn't too late.
It's got to be human nature, you know, that you're drawn to something for a reason, or something has impacted you in your life. And the journey to that place is almost more important than getting there. Just the fact that you are on a mission to do something. It tells you about that person, that they're searching for something that they have.
So beautiful.
Yeah,
it hits me
like
twice because
that.
I'm a huge fan of that film, and it's just beautiful sentiments.
Yeah, I think it turned out really well, but it's one of those things you don't know how it happened. It was a bit miraculous, but I do feel also there's a lot of the camera movement. There's the voice. There's some sound design that I did. There's the strings. There's the Spanish harmony flavor. So there's so many elements that make it, I think, work. But it's mostly what makes you feel. And in this case, I think it makes you feel what probably these people that go in pilgrimage to see this place, what that film made them feel, and seeing it in live, what it makes them feel at that moment, and that joy for things that just make you happy, even if they don't make much sense. And that's what I liked about the film.
Yeah. Again, it's a beautiful hymn to something that has the same impact as a religion, but is religion, which I think right now is something that people find very, it's a powerful sentiment indeed. And I hate to do this to you, but I think we have to play Ecstasy of Gold now. We have to see where your perfumes come from, put that clip into context as well, because I think you did a great job in that piece of music. It's completely separate to Morricone. It's totally doing its own thing, but there is somehow, to coin your word again, there is that perfume. There's something mellifluous in the air that puts it in the same area as him, but is completely your own as well.
It's such a great clip.
It's so good.
Yeah.
I could just see today a producer saying, "Yeah, I really love it, but don't you think he just runs for a little too long?"
Yeah. And it of course, like, what makes it fascinating is the music. Of course, I mean, the way it's shot is wonderful, but it would have been hard to watch for a long time if it weren't because of the music. So yeah, I think they work together very well.
So let's go on to another documentary that you did, talking about music dictating the pace of the action, and this is A Fragile Balance, which is a documentary about global inequality and the kind of the issues of modern living in Spain and in Japan and in South America. And you got nominated for a song that you wrote called Muerte, which is the kind of centerpiece sequence of this documentary, which we'll show in a second. But is there anything that you want to say before we show the clip?
No, just show it and we'll talk after.
友達でもこの間ちょっと首つっちゃったりとか身近にもいるし、やっぱりそうやって死にたいって思う自分もいるだろうし、それって自分もなり得る話だと思うんですよ、今の自分でも、クソって思えない自分で戦う気もないし、ちょっとなかなか、なり得てしまうことだと思うんで、とっとと決めて、
En octubre del año pasado te digo, quiero morirme ahora mismo. Porque es que yo en octubre ya, los últimos días en el parque ya es que no podía dormir. Levantaba por la mañana entumido, ya de la humedad. He dormido en los puentes de los colores. He dormido en el banco de Vizcaya. He dormido en el banco que hay en la puerta de la iglesia. Joder, pasaba más mal. Y a mí ha habido gente que me ha comprado comida en la calle. Yo vivo de puta madre, nunca me faltan la cuchilla feta. Y sin embargo, a raíz de venir toda la crisis, a venir la muerte de mi mujer y todo, y echarme, he tenido que afeitar con lo que me ha comprado la gente. Pero siempre lo he afeitado y duchado, macho. Eso es lo bueno que tengo.
Tant qu'on ne rentre pas en Europe, nous on est considérés comme des morts, morts vivants. Notre vie n'a pas de sens. Ici, c'est un cimetière pour nous. Un cimetière. Moi, ça fait 9 mois ici. J'ai vu beaucoup de morts ici, devant la barrière. Devant. C'est pas comme on dit. J'ai participé à tous ces frappes, j'ai vu. J'ai vu tous ces massacres, ça a été fait devant moi. Tu vas le dire quoi à ta famille? Tu vas dire quoi à tes enfants? Que papa est sorti, il allait faire 3 ans dehors pour rien. Non, on préfère la mort que de se retourner.
Normalmente nadie se quiere morir, aunque todos sabemos.
But this word that keeps coming back to my mind, just immersive, when we play these pieces of music of yours, whether it's this or Adios or The Good Boss, it's like you're being sucked into another world.
Well, that's what I try, so thank you. Yeah, what I really like about this clip specifically is that, well, many things happen, but one that I think was important for me is that, when at the end we're seeing this person being beaten and a person that is being killed, these images are real. This person was killed. This is a footage from the border. So I just thought like I could not just score it and like pretend we're seeing something that is not real. Now we're seeing somebody beaten to death. So I wanted the voice to be interrupted. I wanted the music to become kind of diegetic. We're hearing it. It's part of the scene. It's not score anymore. Like the music is affected by what's happening. And it doesn't continue. So the first part is like underscore, but at that point it would be other kind of music. I don't know. It's source. It's not even source. I think it's a different kind of music that hasn't been named. But it's like, what if the film can listen to the score? And I think that was what makes it so powerful.
Wow. With this sequence, did you ever listen to it without the images? Just
Yes.
the sound?
Yes, of course. This documentary had no references, had no temp score. I built it from scratch. Everything was edited with my music, and I worked very, very closely with the director for many months. So it was a very different process to what you can afford in commercial cinema. We work at different paces. I mean, you need to do a score of many films to make a living. That's the reality of it. And well, at that point, I was because I was fighting so much to get into the industry, I had more time, and I devoted all my energy to my works, to the works that came my way. And I was working on this one for a very long time. I don't remember, maybe in total like 9 months or something like that.
And the thing with documentaries is they are all about the editing. They find their story and their voice in the editing. It sounds like you were a part of that process, that you were helping guide the way they were shaping that story. Would that be fair?
Well, we decided together. Let's say we were all collaborators, and we made many decisions together, and we found many things together. Many things we didn't know, like when you start with a documentary, it starts in one place and it follows its own path, and you just also have to find what is the documentary telling you, because sometimes you're forcing it in a direction, and sometimes it's telling you, no, maybe I have this other thing that is really important. So those are the things we try to find when we're doing a documentary. And yes, I mean, we talked a lot. We did like a map, I remember, of light and darkness, of what were the lightest and the darkest parts of the film, and that would help me also scoring. It was a very meticulous process, and of course here in this clip the voice is extremely important. It's a singer called Ushia that I really liked, and I made her imitate some instrument, a kind of Indian instrument I sampled, so I wanted her to try portray that with her voice, and that's the result, and I really liked it.
Right, but did you record the track and then they compose the images around the track, or
no?
What came first?
I think I did the mock-up completely, and the mock-up didn't have the voice. It had this Indian instrument that I used, and then I asked this singer, can you sing what I have, but just like, so it sounds improvised, but it's not improvised. It's actually I wanted exactly those notes, so because that's the main theme. So it does sound very free, but it wasn't free. So, and then I also, once she gave me the recording, of course, I chose the best parts of what she had done, but it's very similar to what I had mocked up, but with a voice, because I felt it really needed this human aspect, somebody giving their heart and soul. I didn't think we would achieve it just with instruments. I think the voice is something even greater than an instrument.
We are now going to go to something completely different, and this is a great lesson for all film music students out there. Is, you know, keep yourself loose, keep yourself very, very capable across the genres. We're now going to go to a children's animation that you did called Nutcrackers, which was early in your career. It's interesting to hear you talk about the early part of your career in context of Delicate Balance. And this is as different Delicate Balance as you could ever get.
I haven't lost anything. I'm down here.
Oh, what a fright you gave me.
Come on, now we've got to get into the train quickly before we get down to the tunnel.
Why? What's the matter with the tunnel?
You'll see. You're gonna love it. We have to climb up on the roof. There's a trapdoor on the second carriage that we can climb into. Come on! Come on, hurry up! Oh! Watch out! Duck down!
Wow.
Talk us through this one, Zeltia.
So many different musical styles in such a short space, which is really difficult. I mean, I love what I did in that film, but honestly, I would think twice about doing another animation. It was so hard because it's very difficult because mostly what you're seeing is very simple animation, so everything is in the music. And also, it was an animation movie, I think it was for ages 3 to 7. So those very small children. So I wanted to do a score that didn't just use like regular, very simple harmony. I used very complex and very advanced harmony. Now that I heard it, I was like, wow, I've never used those kind of transitions in such a long time. So I think it's great to not underestimate what children should hear, because we are creating the listeners of the future, and if these children listen to this when they were 3, what will they be open to listen when they're 18? So I think this is very important. That was one of the things I wanted to do, and then I go through many different styles, and it starts with something that's pop, and then it moves to this magical world with choir, and then it moves the end this kind of I don't know, reggae style or something. There is a bit of everything, and it was very hard to do. I remember I had a very hard time, but now, like, it was my second film. Now that I look back, I'm like, it was really hard. I understand why I had such a hard time. It would be very hard for me today to do it.
So you, after the conservatory in Spain, you then went to Berklee School of Music in America and trained there. And then, and you have a lot of ties and links in LA. Did you, although this is a Spanish film, did you do this on returning to Spain, or was this something you did in America in terms of the music?
This one I did when I returned to Spain. Actually, I was living at that moment in Barcelona. I lived there for a year, and that was when I was scoring this film. And it was a very big project for a young composer. It's a full choir and the orchestra. Was recorded actually in Kiev. Sorry, I think there's something sounding here. I think the headphones. Anyway, there's something. So it was a very big scope project that now I feel I'm very happy to have done it so early. I learned so much from it, but maybe you should start a little bit with something a little bit easier because you can get very frustrated if you get something that's so difficult to start with.
Yeah. Because we all think, oh, children's animation, it's childlike, it's simple. But as you've just been describing, it's really, really complicated. And I love what you're saying about creating something that can inspire young people, even at that early age, to connect with music in a really sophisticated way. Could you just talk a little bit about, this is your second film, talk about that process of, because I think it'd be very valuable for our students listening, of leaving music school and entering the industry, and just the challenges, how you overcame the challenges, the good things, and any pieces, anything, piece of advice that you might want to give.
That's very hard for me to do, because of course, in retrospect, you think things differently than when you were there trying. At that point, it was very hard for me because films were like, workflow was very slow. So I did give my everything in every work. I did put a lot of effort, a lot of time. I didn't sleep for years. I'm still not sleeping, but it's getting slightly better. The hardest part is to get work. And so I thought, I mean, if I do a really good job in everything I get, well, hopefully that will bring me more work. People will notice. But these films were very small. Very few people saw them, so it was hard to start to make a living and to find enough work to keep it stable, and that took at least 10 years. So yeah, you do have to have a lot of patience and luck and so many things, but of course you have to work very, very hard. And what I am happy about it is that I was very creative, and I was I don't know, I was open, and I was felt like my language could fit these films, whereas now I feel the industry is much more constrained and they want this particular thing. And because I had that freedom early in my career, I think I look at it in a different way. Okay, I can be close to the temp, but I'm still gonna do things that I think are more personal, and that I also, because there is something that I do feel about making scores that are so similar, is that when you're doing something that is very similar to this other film, you're just gonna achieve a more diluted emotion of what that film achieved, and this goes diluting and diluting along the chain. So if you really want a strong impact, you can only achieve that through something that's original, that's something that's unique to that. And this is something many directors don't understand. They think that by copying this other masterpiece or whatever, you're going to achieve that, and you're just going to achieve something that's less than that. So why not try something different? Maybe it's not the exact emotion you wanted, but it's something that they haven't perceived in that way before. And I mean, I love to work with brave directors, but that's also something you don't choose. Directors that choose you, and some are braver than others. But yeah, I would encourage composers to be brave.
Yeah, you've just described a continual fight for originality. I mean, based on other people we've spoken to, whether it's Tom and Andy or Ruth Barrett or Daniel Pemberton, 10 years sounds about right for everyone to break in there and do their early work. It's almost could be a rule.
Well, it makes me feel better because I've always thought my career was extremely slow, maybe because it felt that way. So maybe it wasn't that bad.
How did you find, you were trained in America and you won the Jerry Goldsmith Award several times, and you were trained in a very American context. How did you find it returning to Spain and going back into the Spanish industry, or going into the Spanish industry?
Well, there's many things about that. First, maybe I would describe what it was for me to move to the US, coming from the Spanish conservatory system, which was very, very different. I wasn't happy at all in the Spanish conservatory system. It's based mostly on what you're not doing well. That's how they educate you. And so there was a point where I was starting to lose the love for music. So I have a lot to thank to American education in a way, because they have many good and bad things, but they have something that worked really well for me, and is encouragement. It was the first time ever I was told, this is incredible, you have to record this. I was like, the first time a teacher told me that, I was like, they must be joking. This has never happened to me. Nobody has ever told me this. And it worked really well for me. I needed encouragement. And it's not bad to need encouragement. There is a point where you can feel you're good all your life, but there is a point where you need somebody else to tell you. And that is what I got mostly from Berkeley. I started to believe in myself. I mean, of course, if I did take, if I was 22 years in the conservatory in an environment where I was being told I wasn't good, and I still did it for 18 years, then it meant that I did believe in myself. But there is a point that the battery starts ending, and you need something else. And also that's what I feel has happened in my career. Now I feel I'm very tired because I've been working a lot for the past 3-4 years, or maybe more. Maybe the last 10 years have been extremely busy. But now, although I'm very tired and I would love to have a vacation, I think because my career is going slightly better, because I'm working with directors that really value what I bring in, and so I feel that is feeding me. And that is what you don't have at the beginning of your career, and that is very difficult. And that is why many artists quit, I think, because there is a point where you can think you're good, but it's not showing in money-wise, it's not showing like peer-wise, it's not showing. You need to see it somewhere, and you need to feel that you're being valued. And this is what takes a very long time, I think, in film scoring.
Now, this is important, and this may be very difficult for you to express, but I think it would be very valuable for all our viewers to hear just what your mechanisms were in those first 10 years. And I felt the same. We all feel this creatively, the questioning moments, because it would be let's put it this way, it would be a tragedy to film scoring if you had quit. We wouldn't have Muerte, we wouldn't have Adios, we wouldn't have some extraordinary pieces of work. So could you just describe in those difficult early years, and we all have them, or people watching are going to have them, what your mechanisms were to kind of just grind through and overcome?
Well, first of all, you're so nice, thank you. I don't know, I've wanted to quit many times, and I think, it's not so bad to want to quit. It's natural in this kind of professions. It's very difficult to make a living, and it requires all of your energy and all of your time, and many people along the way are going to tell you just teach or get a normal job. Why don't you do that? And you think about it many times, and sometimes I still think about it. But I think when it starts to go slightly better, you start seeing more of the benefits of this kind of life. But it is a life of big sacrifice. It's as if you were an athlete, or you have to be doing this as if you were going to the Olympics. And you have to train every day, which in our case is sitting down and trying, and many times for me, the biggest leap is sitting at the computer, at the piano, and trying things. That's very hard. I'm especially afraid of starting a score. Like when I start a score, I feel like I'm dying. It's the end of the world. It's the worst feeling. I would rather do anything else in my life than start a score. Once the score is going and once it's working, and when I feel the director is happy, then I start breathing a little bit, and it goes until you get to the recording, and there's so many things that happen along the way, but that's where that leap of faith is very difficult, and it's very scary, and it still is today. So that I don't think gets better. So you just have to get accustomed. And what you were feeling, what you were saying about how to in the beginning of your career, how to stay believing in yourself. I really don't know. I think you have to have something internal that's really strong that I cannot describe, that is telling you just keep doing it even if it's so hard. But it's cost me my whole life. I barely have free time. There's a lot of things that are not as nice as what you see when you see a film, or when you see the achievements of somebody. You don't know what personal cost it has to them, and for me the personal cost has been very high. And that's something that I think just people should know because it's the reality.
Well, that is admirably honest of you. And I think it's important for people to know that there is no clear-cut answer to this. You have to believe in what you're doing. And on that note, what I'd like to do now, I find one of the things that keeps me going through the dark times is to remember things like Ecstasy of Gold, the reason why I'm here in the first place. So I'd like to play one of your inspirations, and then after that, we're going to go into some questions from the students.
Okay.
Exia Deo, in munde Spiritus et allocum Spiritui Sancto Paraclito. Oremus, preces nostus, per Christum Domine nostrum. Amen. Michael, crucis Domine in impressiones signatum, or the magnitudines gloria tua rudimenta servans, per custodia mandatorum tuorum, ad regenerationes gloriam pervenire meriatur, per quiendum Christum Dominum nostrum. Amen. Oremus omnipotens sempiterne Deus, Pater Domini nostri Iesu Christi respice dignatus super hanc fabulum tuum Michael, qui venturus est judicari vivus et mortus in saeculum perennium. Amen. Michael, accipe sal sapiense propitiasse tibi in vitam aeternam. Amen. Deus omnipotens Pater Domini nostri Iesu Christi, qui Dei regenerabit aquae Spiritus Sancto, qui de tebi tibi remission omnium peccatorum, iste te lineat Chrisma te salutis in eodum Christo Iesu Domine nostrum, in vitam aeternam. Amen. Ego te lineolio salutis in Christo Iesu Domine nostrum, rabias vitam aeternam. Amen. Credes in Spiritum Sanctum, Sanctam Ecclesiam Catholicam, Sanctorum Communionem Remissionem Peccatorum, carnes resurrectionem et vitam aeternam. Credo. Exercite mundi Spiritus in nomine Patris, et Filii, et Spiritus Sancti, ut exias et recedes ab hoc famulum Dei Michaeli, isienem tibi impere maledictit damnata. Effrata quores ad aperire, in dona suavitatis, tuatum effulgar diabli apocum guabeneum judicium Dei. Michael, do you believe in God, the Father Almighty, creator of heaven and earth?
I do.
Do you believe in Jesus Christ, his only Son, our Lord?
I do.
Do you believe in the Holy Ghost, the Holy Catholic Church?
I do.
Pater nostri qui es in caelo, sanctificetur nomen tuum, adveniat regnum tuum, fiat voluntas tua sicut in cielo et in terra. Panem nostrum quotidianum da nobis hodie, et dimitte nobis debita nostrum, sicut in nos limitibus debitoribus nostris, et ne nos inducas in tentationem, sed libera nos a malo. Amen. Michael, ingredere in templum Dei, ut habeas patem cum Christo in vitam aeternam. Amen. Credo in Deo Pater omnipotentem, Creatorem Caeli et terrae, et in Iesum Christum Filii eius unigenitum Dominum nostrum, qui conceptus est Spiritus Sancto, natus ex Maria Virgine, passus sub Pontius Pilatus, crucifixus mortus et sepultus, descender ad inferos, tertia die resurrexer ad mortus, ascender ad caelos, seder ad dextra Dei Patris omnipotentem, inde venturus est judicare vivus et mortus. Credo in Spiritus Sancto, Sanctam Ecclesiam Catholicam, Sanctorum Communionem, Remissionem Peccatorum, Canus Resurrectionem, Vitam Aeternam. Amen. Michael Francis Rizzi, do you renounce Satan?
I do renounce him.
And all his works? all his pomps?
I do renounce them.
Michael Rizzi, will you be baptized? In nomine Patris, et Filii, et Spiritus Sancti. Michael Rizzi, go in peace, and may the Lord be with you. Amen.
You know, normally we do our influences at the start of these shows, but there's something about everything you've talked about up to now and what that remarkable piece of work does, which is its voice, its music, its imagery. It's so, and we've seen reflections in your work of this, and also what you were saying just a moment ago. Those moments where you feel terrible, you want to give up. It's remembering things like this, like maybe one day I'll be able to do something like that.
For sure, yeah, I love that scene. I think it's impeccable in so many ways. I could talk about it for hours. There's so many things that I find remarkable, and also in just in the volume, how it's used, and it's even louder outside than inside. There's so many things that he's taking into account to make this so powerful. And of course, the editing is going a lot with the music. How can an organ piece like this, which is actually, I think it's two different pieces from Bach, and then they did some recording on top of some of the bass. It's like very strange harmonies. They are adding another layer to these Bach pieces, and I just found it's fascinating in the construction. It becomes the scariest music ever, and you're seeing this baptism, and I don't know, there's so many things why I think it's and I think the main reason why I think it's so good is because the music is taken so much into account into how to construct what he wants, and this is what we love as film composers. Yeah. And the way the music builds to that final, the renunciations and the assassinations, it's what you said earlier. It's at the very start. It gets beyond explanation. It just is. Yes, I think that scene, anybody would understand it without knowing how the music works. Right, well, we have a question for you from one of our students now.
Yeah, I'm Agustin Alonso. I'm a UNT graduate student. I'm studying composition with an emphasis on film music. Hi, Zeltia. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Hi.
I very much enjoyed watching the clips, and your music and all of these were absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you, on many of the scenes we saw today, there were monologues, which were maybe perhaps the most important part of the scene. But the music also played a very important role in evoking a certain feeling. As an aspiring film composer myself, many times I can't help to focus on the music in a conscious way. Could you tell us how do you approach writing music that's interesting enough, but that doesn't intrude with the main voice of the film?
That's really important because really our job is to make the dialogue be heard very well and be very well understood. So I take very much into account the dialogue. I do mark exactly where it appears, every phrase. I do mark the moments I want to make something different because of what he's saying. I do have a lot into account the pitch and the sound and what instruments can work well with that voice. Also the instrumentation that can help that scene. You really have to score as if, like having every element into account, the sound design too, but especially the dialogue and especially in monologues. Yes. So just my advice would be to really have that in mind and to compose with that, not against that.
That's great. That's helpful. Thanks.
And I guess you've been, as we alluded to earlier, you've been lucky enough to work with actors like Javier and Pedro, who've got very, very distinct voices.
Yes, but with any actor, you have to really take into account where in the spectrum their pitch is and what kind of sound their voice has, because sometimes you can interfere a lot, or if you choose well your instrumentation, you can interfere less. So it is very important to take it into account.
And is that something, are you watching like the dailies or the assemblies to get a sense of the actor's vocal performance?
Sometimes, yes, when I start earlier, yes. And when I don't have it until the first cut, well, I hear it when I start composing. But yes, it's very important.
Okay, we have one more question for you from...
I'm going to present this one, Zeltia, from the student perspective, and this is something that many students come to me as they're aspiring to make their way into the industry and develop their skills, develop their voice. Many of them feel a little bit confused about how do I cultivate my skills to be versatile, but then at the same time I want to be original. I'm told that I need to be able to do a lot of different kinds of things, but then I also need to draw attention to myself. And so I find that students often they're not sure how to balance those two things in regard to their role as composers, supporting the work in a versatile way, but then creating their own voice. Could you speak to that from a young aspiring composer's perspective?
Well, I'm going to give some advice that somebody told me at a moment where I was doubting and I thought about teaching. So this person that was actually going to hire me told me, what do you think you need this? What do you think is wrong with your music or something? And I don't know exactly how it was, but I remember I was talking about the things that I thought I didn't have in my music, and he said, well, there's so many things you do have, why concentrate on the ones you don't have? And I thought it was great advice, and that's part of what makes you original, like loving also what you're not good at, like loving the darkest parts and the most illuminated parts, and accepting where you are. That doesn't mean that, of course, if you're bad at big band writing or whatever and you think you're gonna need it, well, maybe you should also learn that. But I think it is more important to know what your strengths are and really fight to show your strengths as much as possible. And of course, then, if you can be like an extremely complete composer, that's what we would all love. But I mean, we are human and we are good at what we are. And maybe if I really tried to be very different composer to who I naturally am, it would be going against me, because maybe there's so many other composers that are really good at that and I'm good at something else. So, I mean, it's a bit knowing what you love and what you're good at and accepting that.
That's great advice. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, know yourself.
I guess it takes time.
It
and a lot of love towards yourself. Yeah.
That's why 10 years is probably the time it takes you at least to get to that state. And,
yes, that's why I feel life is too short, because I don't know, when we start being good, maybe we're 80 or something.
Well, yes, that's one of the quirks of life.
Yeah.
You only feel you nailed it and then your time is up.
I guess.
That's been a fantastic conversation, Zeltia. And thank you for being so honest and open, as well as creating beautiful music.
Well, thank you for allowing me the space.
I'd like to end. As an inspiration for everyone watching this, we'd just like to show you a little bit of your acceptance speech at the Goyas, how we first began this interview, because I think it's something that I would like people to take away from having watched you.
Okay.
Quiero agradecer también, por supuesto, a Fernando León. Lo difícil para una compositora es que te den la oportunidad y que además confíen en ti y confíen en tu criterio. Quiero agradecer a mi equipo, a Joan Martorell y a Alfredo Jiménez. Quiero dedicárselo a todos los españoles en Los Ángeles que han sido como hermanos para mí, a todos los españoles que alguna vez tienen que emigrar para perseguir sus sueños una y otra vez. La historia de la música no ha sido muy agradecida con las compositoras, tampoco lo ha sido la historia del cine. Lo que las compositoras no han tenido ha sido oportunidad. Esta oportunidad que yo he tenido se la dedico a todas las mujeres que cada día nos acuestan por las noches componiendo música.
It's still hard for me to watch myself.
Well, I'd encourage people to watch the rest of the speech. It's a very powerful speech, but of course, this is an industry where women are woefully underrepresented even now. Something that we've had discussion about on other episodes. Do you see that now changing with people like you, not just doing well but being recognized?
I do think it's changing. Of course, we're not quite there yet, but it's getting better. I feel optimistic, and I do feel, what I think is most important, I think, is that people are understanding what's been happening, and many people are really wanting to make a genuine change, and that's something, of course, I feel grateful for.
Well, I think seeing your story, and of course, from your perspective, it took you forever to get there. From other people's perspective, you've got to where you are really fast. Believe it or not.
Well, I'm still not even there, but...
you won a Spanish Academy Award. The only thing left is a American Academy Award. But
the only thing left is money.
Well, that's and to see also the range of genres that you've worked in, and going back to Drew's question, the way in which, whether it's the Nutcrackers, whether it's children's animation, or whether it's kind of hard action thriller, there's still a very distinct voice there, very distinct.
Thank you. I'm proud of that.
And I think, as you have been very, very blunt and honest in saying, it's not easy. It's a tough journey. People should not be under any illusions about the journey that they're going on. But to see that you've made it, I would hope will inspire a lot of other people to carry on this journey.
I hope so.
Okay, one last question. What do you see the future of music and moving image being as we enter a world of AI and everything else?
I mean, of course, it's hard to know. I do hope music becomes even more of an immersive experience. many times I've thought I would love to, and I think it's like the technology is right there now to do this more in a way. Many times when I was mixing, one of the things I like most in the world is to mix a score. I'm very, very picky with mixes, and when I mix that, many times I feel like, how would it feel if we went close to the violins? How would we feel if we went close to the brass guitar, or if we walked around them? So I think there's so much more still to experience in a mix that is changing live, that as we walk we're hearing some things, and there's so much that can be experimented still in the way we experiment music. But of course what I feel hopeful about is, even though I feel the music industry is in a very bad state for musicians, it's very hard. But what hasn't gotten old is what music makes you feel. And that is something that happens immediately, and that's so powerful that it can't be taken away from the creators. So that gives me hope. At least they won't be able to take that away from us.
Well, to quote you, back at yourself, when in doubt, be music.
Yes. I say to myself sometimes. We need some humor in life.
If you want to check out that quote and more, go onto Zeltia's Instagram page, follow her, watch her films. You can see Sad Hill Unearthed on Netflix. You can see Silence of the Marsh on Netflix. Good Boss will be coming to the States and to Britain this year, no doubt. And Zeltia, I just want to thank you from all of us for a fantastic discussion, and thank you for your honesty as well as your talent.
Thank you too for your such wonderful treatment. Thank you.
Great.
Wow. That was amazing. Zeltia, she's just such an extraordinary talent, Olly, and the work speaks for itself. I kept thinking during your discussion back to the second episode, the interview you did with Andy Milburn, and how he talked about he doesn't like to refer to himself as a composer. He refers to himself as a filmmaker. You remember this comment, and I just kept thinking that over and over again as Zeltia was talking about and expressing her sensitivity to the vocal delivery of the actors, the cinematography, and the movement of the camera. She's just so dialed into so many different aspects of the filmmaking, and it's just such a great thing for our students to be able to bear witness to that well-rounded sensitivity. I'm sure you appreciate that as a director.
Totally. And rewatching these clips, just that immersive experience of her music. And I would encourage everyone, go on Spotify. A lot of her music is available on Spotify. Just sit down with a glass of wine or whatever. If you're in LA, it's legal now. Have a spliff, run a bath, listen to her scores. Just lose yourself in that music, because even beyond the moving image, it's profoundly immersive, beautiful, beautiful stuff.
Absolutely. What a great couple of hours. And thank you so much, Zeltia. We really appreciate it here from the University of North Texas. Olly, we've got some really great conversations planned in the episodes to come. Do you want to talk about next month?
Next month we have Tyler Bates, who's one of Hollywood's biggest composers right now. The films he's scored have made something like $5 billion, and he's right in the heart of the modern tentpole Hollywood industry. He's done the score for Marvel work, particularly Guardians of the Galaxy, Deadpool 2, the John Wick franchise, the movie 300. He has ongoing relationships with directors like Tom Gunn, Chad Stahelski, Zack Snyder, Ty West. He also has done video games, TV series, The Punisher, Californication, and over lockdown, he started his own kind of sort of side imagining of the DC universe, DC Dark Knight's Death Metal, which is available on YouTube to watch. On top of that, he is a proper old rock and roller. He's just come off tour with Jerry Cantrell. He's played with Marilyn Manson. This is a guy who brings his own brand and flavor to everything he does, even at the highest level. And on that, he connects with what Zeltia was saying just now about bringing your originality to your work. It's going to be a fantastic conversation.
It's going to be really exciting. So everybody, please tune in next month. And that said, thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. And without further ado, we will bid you farewell. And Olly, cheers. We'll see you next month.
Ciao.
Ciao.